Hey, what's up, guys? We are doing something different today. All right, so here's what we did. The past weekend, we had a proficiency flight organized for all the pilots that were stuck in the COVID-19 thing. So for the last 4 months, nobody's been flying. And Civil Aviation Authority has granted us some permits for the guys that got their skills getting a bit rusted up. And we thought it was a good idea to bring them all out to Nirvana, Africa. We got this great lodge here. We got a private game reserve, enough space. We got a runway, and we thought it'd be a great idea if everybody can come together like we usually do. And we usually do just like a Nirvana day, but now it's Nirvana, Dudek, and everybody else just wanted to come in and do a proficiency. So I think we could probably have done more than 19 pilots, but in the end, we just did 15 that made the trek out here. And that still is a lot of pilots to get airborne in one go. I'll tell you that much. All right, so here's what we did. We got a commercial drone pilot, thumbs up engine, thanks. But he's a Nirvana pilot local, and he filmed everybody's takeoff with the drone. And we did a layout very much the same way we did in the Icarus X here in South Africa. Not this year, so it was 2019. And basically, everybody was laid out in the length of the runway, so it was like a sequence. First guy goes up, goes through all the way, 15 seconds break between everybody, so just so the turbulence dissipates, or at least the wake turbulence dissipates. All right, so I thought it was a great idea after reviewing the footage that I could maybe do a bit of commentary on it, and I could show some mistakes that were being made. A lot of guys were flying hardships, and it showed. And if you don't fly gliders like the Hadron XX, then you can get rusted up quite quickly, and it's a difficult glider to leave in the garage and just fly every now and then. It's something that you need to be proficient with. All right, so without further ado, let's not talk crap. Let's get into business. We've got a trike here right at the back. Also a new pilot, but he's a very experienced PG pilot, so for him to convert over to trike wasn't too difficult. Then we got a Universal 31 with a fairly new pilot, but flying for a bit more than a year, Dr. van Skalkwyk. And then we got a Solo 24 with a student, Instinct. Then another Solo 27, Theo. It's his first day with the Solo 27. Then we got a Nucleon XX with Dion, and then we got a Universal 31. So you can see the Universals are quite popular. I don't know why the guys didn't stack up on this stretch here, but now we got a Nucleon Cabrio. A guy flying it solo. And then there's a Hadron XX24 hot ship. And then a free ride, all right, 21. That's also going to be fun to watch. And then a Solo 24 with a Pat Moster pilot. And it's a Universal military color with skull on it. And that's a Hadron XX20 and me at the very front with a Warp 20. All right, Warp 20 is a really great glider, simply because the kind of conditions we had that day, it feels like zero wind. It feels like maybe a little bit of tailwind, then a little bit of headwind. You don't know where the wind's coming from, and that is where ADT really shines. ADT is that any direction takeoff that I always refer to, and basically just hold the risers forward, keep gunning it while you're doing that with the trims completely closed, and you will give the direction that you want to fly. That's basically where you're forcing the glider to go in the direction you want. It will ignore the dominant wind direction, and it'll get airborne. That's how I did it there. So it was almost like the wind wasn't present on the ground, and then suddenly when the glider was airborne, there was an effect that you could see on the glider where there was some wind. Hadron XX goes up. Pilot goes onto the throttle, thinks he's going to take, he lets go of the throttle, and it pitches back forward, and he saves it by just grabbing the brake so he didn't plow. You can see he was pulling on the left brake, but he also went off the throttle and it pitched forward. I think that there was a little bit of wind, even though it wasn't present on the ground, and the Hadron XX is very, very sensitive to wind. That little bit of light wind is what killed me in the Icarus. That 1 to 2 to 3 kilometer hour wind. Just that little bit, because the Hadron needs to be directly into the wind. If you're not into the wind, you're not getting airborne. So when you're landing on a tight spot and you've got to take off in the place that it's not perfect for takeoff, then you're going to have trouble, and you need a super advanced skill to do that and some space, because the technique for taking off counter to the wind direction is getting it up into the wind and then counter steering the direction you're going to take off slowly, because you can't do anything. It's a very agile glider. You can't do anything too fast with the Hadron XX. And then eventually when you're in the right direction, you're going to hold on to that direction and throttle up and get airborne. Man, there are not a lot of guys that can pull that off. It is an extremely difficult maneuver to do with the Hadron XX. But once it's airborne, it is the gunship. It just does everything. It's the fastest race there's in town. Nobody's going to beat you, except the guy on a warp. All right, so I would say that the mistake Mike made there is he was super. He's a guy that has got a ton of experience. But when the glider came up, he let go of the risers, so he wasn't kind of forcing it into the direction he wanted to. He wanted to run in the direction I ran into, which makes sense because you just saw the guy in front of you take off in that specific direction. But the Hadron XX is not ADT, so it went into the dominant wind direction, which took him into the bush, and that was something that obviously didn't agree with him. And he was surprised by the direction change. He was grabbing onto the brakes. He was going on and off on the throttle, and he ended up in the bush. All right, but saved it, man. What a good save. He was going down, but he grabbed the brake and lifted a little bit, and he didn't plow. He didn't hit the ground. All right, next up, Stefan with the Universe 31. Pulls it up perfectly. Why is the dumbbell ears hanging? See that? The ears are floppy ears. All right, you got floppy ears over there because he folded his glider out flat. I didn't see him do that, otherwise I would have reminded him to do a crescent moon shape. So what you got to do is you lay your glider out, and where the dots are at the top, you pull it a little bit slightly up so it makes a crescent. It becomes more crescent shaped, so that when you pull up, the glider inflates equally all through the cells. If you fold the glider out flat, like you always see Tucker God do in his movies, then with the dudek that doesn't work. If you pull it up, it'll inflate the front cells, but the airs need time to flow down to the very tips, and then get these dumbbells. Now, technique how to handle that, handles it perfectly. He runs it out. The glider's inflated, gives him lift, and his feet's off the ground. Crowd's going wild. He's off. He's gone. That's experience. He knows what he's doing. He's flown that glider a million times. So doing well. All right, solo 24 with a PAP. Most of what does he do? He stops. Oh, look at that. He stops. He pulls it up perfectly, but it's got pitch control in. So why is he looking up? Now, this is something that a lot of pilots learn to do. They pull up the glider, and then to check, because we always say, check if your glider's in 12 o'clock position before you throttle up. But if you look straight up, what happens is you kind of pop your gimbal off. You can't really focus because you've got to bring your head back. And so what he did there, as he looked up, he stopped. He wasn't running anymore. So he stopped, and what happens is the glider comes up to 12, and now that you're not running anymore, it sags. And then you pull away again when you got your bearings back, and you're gunning it. Then what happens is the glider will pitch backwards because it's taking up the slack in the lines, and then you get a little bit of a pitch moment going. So you've lost lift because now the glider's got to refocus, get lift. So what happens is, see that? He stops, he looks up, oh, okay, all right, no. But he goes deep into the brake to get off the ground. Guys, don't do that. Don't use deep brakes. And the solo is going to save your butt, but always learn the right technique. So I don't think he'll do that again. I don't think it was planned to go that deep in the brakes, but it saved his butt. Free ride, 21, with an air conception, 280. He's got enough power. Free ride, no problem getting airborne. And he keeps on running. That's very good technique, brilliant. But that's also a classic free ride where it's got that shallow run, the shallow ground roll. I've seen that on the Icarus many times. And once it's got its speed green, like we always say on the fixed wings, it climbs. Good, no problem. Now, Harry with the Hadron XX24, he pulls up. Glider comes up perfectly. Perfect. He grabs it, stops it from overshooting. Perfect. Which is a problem with the XX. He keeps going and guns it, almost trips, but saves his butt. You can see there, slower down, he's pulling it on the left a little bit. It did oscillate to the left, but he saves it because he's got a lot of experience. He needed a lot of running to get airborne there, but use what you've got. We got Rian Coconut with the Cabria. WRC, that's just too easy, man. The guy makes it look like it is taking off a heavy. That's what it is. All right, Nuclear XX. Here we go. Dion. takes it into 12, holds the risers forward, keeps going, throttles up, off the ground. It's not a problem. Crowd goes wild. All right, now we got Theo with the Solo 27. He's never taken off with the Solo 27s. He got the glider the day before. He's never taken off with it before. All right, what does he do? He pulls his arms inwards, and that collapses the Solo because it pulls the front cells towards each other. Always keep your arms all the way out. All right, let the frame take up the tension on the lines, and then you roll it up. It gets to 12 o'clock position, and then you throttle up. So that's what he did wrong. He brought his arms back in. Student, 7th flight, 24 solo. He counter steers, perfectly done, and he throttles up, but he's thrusting himself into the ground. He's not leaning back, and he has to run, and eventually gets airborne. All right, so if he leaned back with that amount of power, instinct 230. That is a Universal 31. Andre with a Ranger 230. Okay, so what he did was when he pulled it up, he thought the glider wanted to go one way, and he was a bit confused about the direction, but eventually got into the right direction, but he kept on running, and that's the most important thing, just kept on running. And make sure that the glider stabilized before he throttled up. All right, trike, no problem at all. He's just gone. That's a perfect takeoff. And guys, that is pretty much what we call that. The guys got airborne. We got all the pilots airborne. That was amazing. Except one guy, Mike, the guy with the Hadron X620. He had 5 attempts. He didn't make it, unfortunately. But that is just the saying that I always have. I think it's appropriate saying to say that hot shit is just a few moments away from being a cold turd. Just think about that for a while. All right. Okay, the reason why I say that is because when you get confident in flying hard ships and you haven't flown it for a while, you need to practice. You need to go spend some time to do it. And that was the whole idea behind this thing, about doing the proficiency flight, is to get guys back into to get accustomed to get proficient with the gear. So he didn't get airborne today, but he's got a ton of experience and he's going to ace that thing, no problem. And I've seen him on that Hadron 20. He's an awesome pilot. So I was gripping the Canon with a 200mm lens, and basically I was just taking snaps of the guys while they were on this 1.5 hour cross-country flight. It's one of our best routes. It goes basically from Nirvana all the way to the Kruger National Park, and then follows about a 30-minute flight along the river, and gives the pilots a chance to have that big 5 game experience, not flying over it. And if anything goes wrong with the motor, you can always just ditch to go to the right and land into farm country. So you don't overfly the river, you don't actually go into the Kruger National Park, so don't have to take the risk of being eaten. So what's nice about this also is you got a 3,500 foot takeoff, and then you got to get over, if you're going to fly over the gorge, which is one of the main attractions to fly this route. It's about 5,000 foot that you got to cruise at altitude to get over, and then you're going to glide all the way down to about less than 500 feet mean sea level. So it's a huge variation in altitude. Look at the footage, it's mountainous, it's fantastic. But also, doing this route, you need to be aware that if something does go wrong, that you are going to be in a bit of a pickle when it comes to landing. Not a lot of outlanding spots here. So having altitude is your friend, obviously. So I played this kind of ATC role. I was able to climb nice and high, go on bar to get to the front guys, turn around if I had to, just take pictures of the guys in the back. I could go back and forth. This route also goes very close to a major international, well, it's not that major, but it's the Kruger International Airport. So if you fly into their airspace, you're in trouble. So you need to be on the radio, make sure you guys are staying on track. I tell the guys, if you're really comfortable with your machine, you can go through the gorge low level, but you need to know that if you're inside the gorge, 4,000 foot cliffs either side, and there is basically no chance for a landing. So you're going to go into the water, or you're going to go into the reed beds, and the ground crew will fish you out. So we had 2 guys, Willie and Flum, thanks guys, that were like a chase team, and basically just had to make sure the guys get through. If anyone does go down, that they are trained in medical and also extraction to get the guys out. Only one incident, the guy with the most had a piston seize, basically because there was some crap in the filter. the carburetor, and basically just he maxed it out. He tried to get to the top end. It's not computer controlled like the Nirvana, so a bit more risk if you've got a dirty carb, a little bit more sensitivity that you need to have a feel for on your machine. And as a new pilot, he missed the indicators there and seized the engine. But he'll be back in the air. He had a good landing, a good out landing, and he was extracted by the ground crew within minutes. All right, there's Harry with the Hadron X624. He's just basically cruising low on the deck. I mean, if he was 30 meters above the ground, that's high for him. I'm just speeding it up a little bit in the play. So he's right on the deck there, and I'm flying above the gorge. Some of the pilots could just ditch to go to the right end. That's like a plateau above the gorge, so it's a lot of outlanding spots. Easy to go down there, but if you're inside the gorge, you need to know that you're taking a bit more risk. Okay, so I could go back and forth, up and down. It's got like a Venturi effect, so if it sucks you into the gorge, you got rotor on the sides. There was not a lot of wind, but you could see the speed indicator was picking up, so it pushes you through and you get a little bit of turbulence at the right end as the Venturi effect dissipates. But all the pilots got through, no problem. And then that long descent starts. You got to make sure that your trim's open, or you hit the bar and you can basically just your speed bar, pick up speed, get down to the low altitudes. Everything on the left of the river is Kruger Park. You can almost see it so clearly. That looks like bush, and the other side looks like farmland. And in that river, you've got Big Five Gabe just walking up and down, elephants, hippos, crocs, submarine-sized crocs. So we definitely, I made sure that the pilots do not get close to the river. So they're flying basically on the river's edge, but not getting into the river. And if anything goes wrong, they can just go into either palm tree on a banana tree on the right end, and have the ground crew fish out of. At least you have something to eat, some bananas. All right, sugarcane. You can see there's just like 100 hippos on that half an hour flight all the way back to the very end of that route. Anyways, basically, we had no incidents. It was perfect. It was wonderful. It was great to see the guys' footage. It was great to analyze it, to have a look at some of the mistakes, and also how some of the guys saved the day in all the different types of gliders doing their thing. We had one guy that missed the landing zone, and I chased him down with a warp, and I stopped him just before the Mozambican border. I was actually just looking at the border. That's how far he flew. That's 2.5 hours of flying there to turn around and still have enough fuel to get back. Not easy, but the guys had an awesome time, and that's just that last look. There is the F-Lite 200 XE, and its little backpack configuration, all folded up, tucked into the car, and that was pretty much our adventure. So guys, if you've got any questions, let me know. I hope I did justice. It was really a great adventure, and I'll see you guys in the air.